Buying cars doesn't have to be confusing, and selling them doesn't need to be cutthroat. I'm Dean McRae, on the move car salesman, relentless, regular Aussie bloke, and I'm the guy kicking down doors in the automotive industry. This program is going to be jam-packed with dealership and manufacturer interviews, along with car enthusiasts sharing their unique wheels and the stories that go with them, and of course anything else automotive that takes my fancy at any given time. So welcome to Car Corner at Dean's Deals, the podcast that gives you the no BS tips, stories and insider secrets from the showroom floor, the car yard and beyond. Whether you're buying your first car, flipping your fifth, or you just love talking all things automotive, I've got you covered with this series. Every episode, I'll be sharing real talk on pricing, trade-ins, finance traps, sales tactics, and how to make smart moves in today's automotive market. So subscribe now to Car Corner at Dean's Deals, wherever you get your podcasts. Fast cars, real advice, and deals that drive. Let's be relentless and hit the road.
Well, there you go, guys. Obviously, that's not the lead-in for this particular podcast, but I did think it was a good opportunity to test the little ad that I've been working on for the Car Corners podcast. It's not quite an ad. It's not quite a PSA or anything of that sort, but I thought I'd give that a go. And as you know, I do like to test all of these things with you guys. So anyway, me playing with this technology, we're getting better and better at it. And the Dina Nerve Spin Doctors video intro, that's all coming now that we've worked out how to do that and make it work. So I figured I'd test it while I don't have the good counsellor here, and we'll use that as a bit of a lead-in. But that podcast will be coming in the next month. I've actually got some really cool guests lined up. It will be completely non-political. That podcast will be literally all about the automotive industry. I know Big Stretch is going to come on and show us around his Cobra. We're going to have a look at some really unique cars. We're going to have a good time with it. But, of course, this is not that podcast. This is Dina Nerve Spin Doctors. And my usual co-host, good Dr. Irvine, is away for the week. So this one, we're going to have a few extras. I've got Stewie Bonds, who is a One Nation candidate. He was just in the federal election, did quite well there. Great bloke, all-round top Aussie superstar. And he is he's very, very influential, I guess, currently in the One Nation New South Wales scene. A miner from the Hunter Valley. Now, he's going to tune on in here as soon as he gets a chance. I'm going to tune into a couple of real quick things locally before he arrives and we start talking more state and national. We're going to start with to the good folks of Area Park who lost one of their own this past week. My condolences to you. It sounds like a pretty sad thing for a lot of people who don't know the family, but that's horrible. And yeah, look, I feel for you. It's just a horrible thing for anyone to go through as a family and as a community. So my condolences there. On to more amusing news, or amusing news compared to the previous news, of course, is 14 codes of conduct for the good counsellor Anthony Irvine. What a complete debacle, shit show, waste of time. The sooner we defund the entire council, I think the closer to reality we're going to get. What a fucking waste of money. Right up there, we're spending $23,000 on a Christmas tree. I'm sorry, but the stupid's running thick and fast, because in the next breath, these same idiots are going to turn around and want to raise our rates to pay for codes of conduct against Councillor Irvine, who from all reports, pardon me, his main sin was he hurt the mayor's feelings. He hurt Graham Sinclair's feelings. He's hurt Belinda Bushell's feelings. He's hurt Nigel Judd's feelings. Seems like a lot of feelings hurt here. And I'm sorry to any one of you guys who are sensitive. Toughen the fuck up. You're in the public space. If your feelings are hurt, I'm not going to be apologising for you. So 14 codes of conduct, complete fucking waste of ratepayers' money. And then you clowns are going to have the audacity to put our rates up. And we all know that's coming because now we've got a $23,000 Christmas tree to pay for. You muppets. My tolerance for this shit's getting lower and lower. So on that front, Temora Shire Council, absolute clowns. That's a debacle. But I've just seen my illustrious guest is just about to join the room. So give me half a second. We'll upload him and get him in here. And there he is. He's got his One Nation jersey on. Mate, how are you?
Mate, good. I'm good. I've just heard a bit about your clown show down there at your local council. So, yeah.
Oh, mate, look, I'll tell you what, it's a fucking debacle. And I know for a fact that we do get quite a lot of people tuning in from the council, as in members and their leadership group. I know that they do participate in watching the podcast quite often,
nice
which amuses the living shit out of me. Should be all right. So yeah. Anyway, so it's all very, very interesting, mate. I'll tell you, it's a debacle. They do watch because you can sort of every now and then they'll accidentally hit like. I'm sure it's just fat fingers or whatever it is, mate. You can see it, and it's funny as fuck. So, ladies and gentlemen, those who do not know Stuart, let me introduce you. So, Stu, just so you know, we've been doing this little podcast now since I got kicked off the Old People's Radio here in town. First, they asked me to do a show. Then they banned me because I was community radio and I was told I'm not allowed to talk about community issues and I'm not allowed to have a local councillor on said programming. So I told them effectively, shove it fair up their ass. So here we are at Dean and Irv Spin Doctors. And ladies and gentlemen, Stuart Bonds, possibly the most successful lower house candidate One Nation's ever fielded. Am I wrong?
Modern times, in the modern era, the modern day, I would say that I have got the best results. I think there was another candidate in Queensland. A couple of them have done really well. Like there has been some really good spots. There was someone that was up in, oh God, her name escapes me now, but up in David Littleproud's seat that got the two-party preferred as well. But that's a pretty strong national seat, so they beat out the Labor Party, whereas my seat here in the Hunter is like the crown jewel of the Labor Party. So we beat the Nationals and got the two-party preferred this time around in this seat, which was a hell of an achievement. It's a good thing to be on the podium. It's a good thing after to put in all that effort to see your name up there on the ABC and the which would have pained them massively to have a One Nation candidate's name up there, but it's up there. It's in line.
ABC two-party preferred, brother. Their heads would have been exploding. I tell you, it would have been a delight to be able to sit in that room and watch them fucking crying. No doubt about it, mate. No doubt about it. So, mate, look, we've known each other now for a couple of years. There's not much we disagree on, I don't think. And I was really, really happy to see you get a win up there. I was disappointed I couldn't get up there for the week and give you a hand. Life got in the road. But if ever there was a bloke that I think should be in Parliament holding these fuckers to account, you're right there on the list. So, mate, the sooner we can get you in Parliament, the better.
I appreciate that. And it is it's a viper's den. And the thing is, I don't think that you need to go into federal Parliament to make a change. You've seen it. You were explaining it before. The rorts are everywhere, and we're paying for it. And there's a young lass, Caroline White, she's down in the Kingston City Council, and she's shared a bit of stuff recently about some of the rorts from the grants that are going on down there. And so it's only when you get inside of these organisations that you can start to have a look at the balance sheets and pry in a little bit, and you start to see things that are out of the ordinary, let's say, like these guys funding religious groups that are not even inside of the council area, and then they're giving kickbacks to some of the councillors to help them get elected come election time, right? So they're using ratepayers' money from their area, sending it elsewhere, then getting a kickback. Now that to me,
I know Carolyn really, really well.
Just a disgrace, and so she brought that to the forefront, which I thought was good. People calling me the other day that had their properties acquired by Transurban. Transurban's a massive group that owns all of our toll roads now. Any road that you want to drive onto toll road, Transurban owns those, and they had been accused in the courts of acquiring these properties and underpaying for these properties. So, I think there's a High Court challenge has gone in there for those guys. So, look, it's happening everywhere. People are getting ripped off everywhere. And, it's good. It's good that there's some people around them pointing it out.
Mate, well, we'd be buggered if we didn't have a few. Carol and I know really well. She's an absolute gun. She ran with the Libertarians in the federal election 4 years ago. During the COVID elections, that's where I guess she came out of the political woodwork, I guess, and she was an absolute jet. And I think she's doing a great job there. Her and Sarah O'Donnell down there in council in Victoria. There's a couple of other real superstars down that way that on occasion need some support, but they also hold their own like absolute rock stars. So they're just real good, genuine people who aren't there for the rorts, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. And I think that that's the area of your life that you're most affected by is your local council. And then it'll branch out into your state parliament. And then last of all, the least impact on your life is actually the federal parliament. And they seem to get the most attention. What you've got to remember is these states have a lot more power and councils have a lot more power than what we give them credit for. Now, the government can rant and rave all it wants about, we want net zero. But if the states choose not to implement it, there's not a damn thing that the federal government can do about it, right? It's not in our constitution. They're not forced to do it. It's just a request, more or less. If they choose to say no and they start approving coal-fired power stations, there's nothing the government can do about it. Nothing. The federal government. So you can see it when they locked the borders down, mate, when COVID happened. There wasn't anything that Scott Morrison could do about those border closures. He could request they didn't happen. He could request they allowed their citizens back in. He could request they allowed people over the border for medical attention. They did not do it. There's nothing that they can do about it. So, yeah. So you want to get involved, you can start at a local level and you'll probably have a lot more local impact,
Yep.
Yeah. So how's things down your way, mate?
Yeah, it's an interesting show, mate, isn't it? Now, obviously, you've just run in the...
Go again, Dino.
I hear you, mate. And I've noticed that you blokes at One Nation have... Sorry, mate?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Just blanked out for a second. Yeah.
Oh, bit of a lag there. I don't know if that's you or me, bro. But, yeah, mate. So I've noticed you guys at One Nation have started really kicking up sort of a bit of a branch structure. Sorry, mate, you there?
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
It's the internet, mate. We can put a man on the moon, but we can't make the internet work properly. But yeah, I've noticed you guys, One Nation. Obviously, I'm friendly with you guys, but how's this new branch structure going to unroll with you guys?
Mate, it's not 100% out yet, the way that it's all going to work and the structure and all that jazz. So I won't jump the gun, but it will have a board, I guess, a committee of sorts. It will have a president. It will have a secretary. We'll have a treasurer, and it will run like a normal, your branches of your other parties, I guess. And the main goal of it will be to bring forward any policies or improvements on policies that we've already got, to bring forward ideas and to bring forward candidates. That's the main thing we need the branches for, is to identify candidates and push them forward for them to be considered by the national executive, So the executive will still have the overarching control, but these branches are about getting more local, connection to people that are on the ground.
Yeah, which I think that's always been a bit of a weakness of One Nation. If I'm being honest, you've obviously had Pauline at the helm, and I don't know too many people that don't think Pauline's a jet. I don't know too many people, certainly in my circles, that go, geez, I hate Pauline, she's shit. Most people kind of go, yeah, I really like Pauline. She reminds me of somebody I know, or whatever the case may be. Politically, she's one of the few people politically I'm sort of somewhat aligned with that I don't think I've ever actually met, which is unusual, I guess. Just where all the, you know what I mean? We go to a lot of similar events. It's how you and I got to be mates. It is funny how that is. Maybe we'll get her on here one night, but I'm glad to see you guys are doing really well, and I'm also glad to see a branch structure taking shape. I think it was sort of an area you were lacking for a long time. I know in our electorate last federal election, I spoke to an awful lot of people. I had quite a lot of One Nation supporters who couldn't find the One Nation candidate, but they could find me. So I was lucky enough to get their support on the ground. I think that's a serious area where if One Nation get it right, you guys become an absolute force.
And that's the key, is getting it right. You know, so when you have a look at the other branch structures that are around, like your Liberal Party, for example, they have stuffed it up, and the branches have actually been their downfall. You know, so they can say, oh, we want this democratic process, we want this democratic process. They don't use the democratic process, right? They have these overarching structures over the top of them that, you know, like have a look in this area. Dan Rapicoli, he was a captain's pick. Right, so when Joel Fitzgibbon stepped down, there was meant to be a vote, and they were meant to vote someone in. But this branch around had been infiltrated by the left, and Joel said basically, I want to choose a successor, and I think I'm right in saying that he was saying, I'm not leaving unless we get someone that I choose, and so there was the negotiation done, and he got to leave, and there was a choice made of Dan Rapicoli. Now, it was a good choice because he was right for the area. The area doesn't want a left-wing lunatic in this area. They will lose the seat immediately, right? And Dan is, he's so far on the right of the Labor Party that he could be in the Nationals, right? He's even more right-wing than some of the National guys. So it was a good choice by Joel. He knew his electorate. He read it well. But see, they didn't use the branch structure. And then they turn around and say, well, One Nation's an undemocratic party. Well, they only let you vote when it doesn't count, mate. They let you vote when it doesn't matter.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I was so happy to see. Yeah. Oh, mate, I was really happy to see Pauline come out and grasp that, because I guess the thing that a lot of people don't think of, and I politically think ahead, I guess, of a lot of these things, Pauline isn't going to be around forever. So there needs to be a plan on, you know, how to move forward when Pauline's ready to retire, for lack of a better term, you know?
Yep. I agree. I totally agree. And this is the way forward, this branch structure. Yeah, I think it's the way to go. You there, mate? I think we've lost Dean. I don't know how this podcast system works, whether I'm still online or I'm not online, because the little live counter up in the corner is still going. So if I'm still on, then yes, this is the future. This is where One Nation will continue to go. It'll continue to expand. It will get bigger, and this will where I think we'll see the growth in the party in the future will be via this branch structure.
Sorry, bud, you there?
Yeah, mate. Yep.
Well, there you go. I figured you wouldn't. I don't know. The internet's just dropped out on this laptop, and must be Turnbull's NBN.
It could be. It could be because I'm on with Musk. So.
Oh, yeah, because you're out on the farm.
I'm on the Starlink, mate. So I don't know if it's you or me.
No, it'd be me. Lisa just messaged and said that it was me. So, yeah, there's nothing like the fine quality technology that we have in 2025. But anyway, look, we're here and we're fired up. So yeah,
Dino's out again. This is Turnbull's finest moment with his NBN. Yep. Unbelievable.
Fucking what a gerbil. But anyways, mate, I'll tell you, he's fucking hopeless, that bloke. But anyway, well, I might have to get on with the Starlink. What's that costing you a month?
Oh, it's not cheap. Yeah. Elon Musk don't miss you. Yeah. Must be it'd be a couple of hundred, or I think it's $100 odd a month, but $500 $500 for the equipment to get up. It might be 120, but look, it works anywhere in the country. So,
well, it's got to be better than this shit, like
it works anywhere in the world, And that NBN, right? That's one of the reasons why I point and say this is why we should not invest all this money into redoing our whole electricity grid. Technology is moving that fast that we got all this AI, man. It won't be long. It'll be 20, 30 years, and fossil fuels really will be a thing of the past, right? And it will be because fusion will come along, right? Or something ridiculous, which is far cheaper, far better, and it'll be like the NBN, right? We finish the NBN, and then Elon Musk goes, bang, I've just got satellites in the air, and your whole NBN system is basically redundant, right? So who says that we're not going to just kill
it was redundant before it landed.
Yeah, it was. And who's to say we're not going to do the same thing with our electricity grid? We're going to build it out with all these shitty turbines, and then we're going to have this new form of electricity comes along, and it's 10 times more productive, and we've just spent $1 trillion stuffing up our electricity grid.
That sounds like something the Australian government would do, mate, for sure.
100%.
That's what they do best, is it not?
Yep. Just burning our cash, brother. Yeah.
So they love that shit, mate. We got a green dream. We got a green dream and delusion to pay for, mate. We got a green dream and delusion to pay for. Here's a question for you. Are you going to run at state parliament?
I think I am going to have a crack at state. I am going to have a go because there's a lot of stuff they're doing with the electricity grid that I really want to have a dig at them about. Right? They are fiddling with something. You have these politicians that have never built anything bigger than a dog kennel, and they are playing with fire. They are playing with a system that they don't understand and is extremely fragile. And there's a few people that are clinging just on the edge of poverty, right? And the only reason that they're not there at the moment is because they can get to energy. They can get electricity. They can afford fuel. Now, if those things go up and out of reach, you're going to have massive amounts of poverty in this country. You're going to have people living in one room in the house because that's all they can afford to heat. That is not a country that we want to live in.
I don't think we're that far away from that, honestly, mate. I think we're getting closer and closer. I know Lisa, my partner, would probably shoot me if I even thought about running again, but I also look at the state of the joint and I think, Jesus Christ, we need to, you know what I mean? Like, it's when you've got, you're a family man, you've got kids, you're thinking about their futures, and you go, nobody in there's fighting for these kids, not one bit, not at all.
Yeah. And if the trajectory was different, right, and things were getting better year on year on year, and there was growth, and it was easy to open businesses, and there's this money sloshing around. Well, I wouldn't be doing this, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not.
If
It's
the
not
job was
exactly.
prosperous,
Not exactly enjoyable. I would prefer to be spending my money and time building stuff. That's what I do. That's what I build machines. I fix machines. I mine coal, and I'm far better at that than what I am at this. But there's no one else that's doing this. There's no one else that's standing there that wants to fight. And if we keep going, I'm not going to have an industry to work in anyway. I'm going to have to move out of the country because they're going to destroy the thing that I enjoy doing. And so, it's all or nothing for me. I either fight this fight until the bitter end, until I either win or lose, or I pack up and move,
Yeah.
And so it is what it is. I love this country. I love the people in this country. And I think that it's given me a good shot at life. And I owe it to the people and I owe it to the country and my family to give it a crack. And that's if I lose, I lose. I've lost a lot of things in my life, and I cry about it. It's a war of ideas, as you know, this game. So maybe we just got to get better at communicating.
we do have to get a bit better at communicating. I've always found too and I mean, I know you're as libertarian as I am without being a hardcore libertarian. Getting that libertarian message, that Javier Milei message out there without coming across as a complete lunatic scares people terribly. It's hard to do.
Well, the goal is to convince people, as you know, is that Argentina, where they were, is where we're going. We're just not there yet, right? Argentina didn't start out a shithole with 20,000% inflation. Argentina was the richest place in the world. And he was just saying, as rich as an Argentinian. Why did they have that saying? Because they were rich. The places were paved in gold, right? That's where all the rich Europeans used to go to. That's why it's got like Paris-style architecture and stuff, because the Europeans used to go down there for holidays. The place was paved in gold. And what did they do? They took on the French-style socialism and it destroyed their country. Right? And it took that much pain for people to go, well, let's pick the crazy guy, right? Let's try what he's saying, because nothing else has worked. Which is basically American style, old school American style capitalism.
Yep.
Hey, presto.
Well, it works. America didn't become that powerful by accident, and look, Australia's got a lot of the same strengths, but we seem to be copying their weaknesses as well, which is just foolhardy. And sadly, one of the strongest backbones in Australian Parliament's Lydia Thorpe, and she's a complete fucking lunatic.
Yeah, you're right. That is unfortunate. Yeah. Mate, who would have thought Lydia Thorpe's got the most balls in Parliament? How sad's that?
Mate, and look, I have to defend her quite a lot. I think she's one of the most honest people in Parliament. Now, she's wrong on just about everything, but I think she believes every bit of bullshit that comes out of her mouth.
Oh, yeah, she's definitely passionate. I'll give her that. Yeah.
You look at these other fucking spineless, gutless people that are running around in Parliament at the moment, and I have very little hope for the state of the country unless we get people like yourself in there.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that we need to go through a period of significant pain. We have been on this economic drug of low interest rates, high debt, and it just cannot go on. You just cannot continue to borrow money into oblivion. That old saying, you can't borrow your way to prosperity. It's not possible. At some stage, you've got to pay that money back, man. It is what it is. So, but people don't want to. They never want to be the one that takes away the punch.
And no, none of them want to do that. And when the minute they do too, they get chased out of the building. Like it's my biggest concern at the moment is this is going to really hit the skids for your kids, my kids, and our grandkids. We're going to be dead and gone, or close enough to buggered by the time the collapse hits, if it doesn't happen soon. Part of me wants to see the collapse happen now, so guys like you and I can sort of deal with it.
Yeah. Well, look, you'll have time to recover. If a big crash happens when you're, say, I don't know, 60, then you're in trouble because it's going to be really difficult to recover from that point. If you have the big crash done when you're in your 40s, right, you've got time to build everything back up again. And the crash is inevitable. It is built in to the system. It isn't. You're back. It was just saying.
Oh, mate, I tell you what.
Just saying.
Yeah, I might as well let you do a solo. All right. No, normally the internet normally the internet's shit, but it's not this shit. We can normally hold a fairly solid podcast without it coming unstuck like this. So I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, it's disconnecting at your end, not at mine. Yeah. No, I was just saying to everyone that the financial system, the collapse is built into the system. The way that it's built and constructed, the first dollar that was brought into existence was brought in as a unit of debt, and every single unit after that was brought in with a unit of debt attached to it. And it just happens that eventually the weight of the debt and the interest of the debt outweighs the money that you got to pay it back, and it just collapses, right? It's just a fiat monetary system. There's never been a successful one that's lasted longer than 50 or 60 years, and we are just at the end of that cycle, right? And the only way that you can perpetuate it any further is mass population growth, which is what we're trying to do via immigration, or a war, right, where you wipe a heap of people out and then you sort of reset the currency by stealth. That's sort of the only two options. We're not going to grow our way out of this, right? We're not going to pay back $1 trillion worth of debt. It's not going to happen.
No, it's not possible. Not while we enjoy the riches of the lifestyle that we're all living at the moment to the volume that we are.
Yeah.
Just the size of the Australian public service tells me that we're not far from collapse.
Yep, 100%, 100%. You can't have all these nice things. You can't have the NDIS. You can't have fully paid Medicare. You can't have everything fully funded, free TAFE, free, uni, free this, free that. It's not free. It's not free. Yeah. It's just, you are just not paying for it now. The bill is much larger in the future than if you pay for it now. That's what they say. That there's nothing more expensive than a free government program.
And nothing more permanent than a temporary government program, mate. Yeah, we're just going to bring in the luxury. We'll bring in the luxury car tax because we'll protect Ford and Holden. Ford and Holden are long gone, and the luxury car tax is still there. Don't you worry.
Yeah. Oh, we're just bringing in this temporary thing to pay for the war called the income tax.
yeah, that's right. Now there's your best stimulus program anywhere in the country. Just abolish income tax and watch how quickly the income, the economy improves.
Yeah, mate, and it's this is the thing. It's a lot of this stuff's counterfactual, right? Like they think they're going to raise more money for businesses by increasing the business tax on businesses, but what ends up happening is the multinational companies just take their profits overseas to Ireland or wherever they pay 10%. And so instead of
Yep.
getting 10% of their money or 12%, we get nothing. We get zero because they take it
And I
overseas.
don't blame them because I do the same thing.
I'll do the
You know,
same thing
like
as well.
I know people who are setting up, companies in Estonia and Vanuatu and joints like that. Where why not? This is where my company is. I'm operating out of there. I'm not paying the Australian rort, and I don't blame them one bit.
Flat tax, man. Flat tax. The system has been set up in a way. It's a predatory system. I don't blame anybody for trying to avoid paying tax. Like, what is it that you actually get for your money? Like, I think this year my bill it'll be $60,000. That's your income tax and the tax I've paid on my cattle and stuff. That's not including rates, fees, all the extra shit that I've had to pay, the cattle yards, taxes, GST on everything, airport tax, cigarette tax, alcohol tax, like
bill tax, stamp duties, rates.
Right, I don't even know some of the taxes that have been paid. Right, so
Mate, I did a thing a couple of years back, Stu, where I actually analysed it. You know what the libertarians are like, mate? They love analysing shit. And 124 different taxes Australians pay across the board. So obviously not every Australian pays 124, but there are 124 different taxes levied against Australians, according to the Treasury website. This was a couple of years ago. You tell me how 124 different taxes is justifiable if you're not a thieving, conniving, corrupt organisation.
Yeah, as opposed to say 20% across the board flat tax, right?
Yep.
Like, so no one can avoid it. You don't need an accountant. You don't need to keep a trillion receipts. You just paid some figure that we worked out that we just went, everyone pays this all the time. And then that's it.
And as much as I detest tax, I would feel far better about it if it was clear, transparent, and there was fucking one of them.
Yeah. There's just one level flat tax that everyone pays, and then there's no. There's nothing.
Yep, you make $1 billion a year, you pay that 10% or 12% or whatever it is, and that's what it is. And there's no ups and downs, and there's no guessing. I mean, admittedly, a heap of accountants would be out of work, but hey, I don't feel bad for them. Sorry, it'd be like feeling bad for politicians. That's never going to happen.
They're going to be out of work anyway because it's all going AI. Everything, our whole life is going to be downloaded, right? You won't be able to do anything.
We were discussing this last week on the program with a slightly better internet connection. And mate, we were talking about it. I've actually been doing AI courses just because I figure as much as I'm a bit of a bonehead in certain areas, that's going to be an area that's going to obliterate your super intellectuals. I don't need a lawyer to come up with a basic contract between you and I, Stu. I can go, you want to buy that, I want to sell that. Here's the price we've agreed upon. Dear AI, ChatGPT, draft me a base contract with the following info, spits it out, make sure it's compliant with all Australian and New South Wales laws. It'll spit you out a contract that it costs the lawyer $1 million to write, or a couple $1,000 or whatever. I send it to you, you send it to me, we sign off on it, we submit it for $50 at the courthouse or whatever the case may be. End of story, done.
Yeah.
No lawyer required.
Yeah. I agree.
The terms have been outlined by the two participants. The legal side of it's been blitzed into a computer. End of issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, some things it's going to make far easier. Some things not so, right? Like I was saying, it's eventually your accountants and stuff, like all of our receipts and info will just be loaded into this thing. Or even worse, once they get the digital currency cranking, you won't be able to hide a single thing that you do. It will tabulate it as you go.
I think that's the more likely scenario. I think that's what's going to happen.
I think if I will be amazed if 2030 comes by and we're still using cash. That's my call. 2030, I believe there'll be a massive, if it's not, hasn't already happened, there'll be a massive push to get rid of it. You know?
Well, they're already leaning into it. They're just not quite there yet.
No,
It'll happen. They'll remove the cash. There's no doubt about it. It's only a matter of when and how they go about phasing it out. Whether they bully it out and just go, right, no more. You're all on the system. Whether you like it or not, you want to eat, you'll be on our system. Or whether or not they actually do sort of phase it out. And I think that'll actually depend a lot on global circumstances. Like a good world war may just be able to set that game up for them.
I think if I had to guess, it'll come with a currency reset. I think it'll come with a reset. I think eventually the debt burden will get too much. Eventually, some countries like America will be paying more in interest than they will be taking in their tax revenue, and that'll be the end of the show, right? Whether that ends with a bang or a whimper is what we've are yet to work out. The USSR, it ended with a whimper, right? They just obliterated and demolished into nothing. The Roman Empire, same thing. It just melted away and it just disintegrated itself because of its stupid currency decisions. The same thing could happen with the United States, where it just perishes under its own weight. Its currency dissolves and it just goes away,
Yeah.
And that is a possibility, and concerning for us when they're our attack dog.
Oh, look, we're absolutely. They are our protector for sure. We're in a lot of trouble if not. I mean, we're in a little bit of trouble anyway because our current government couldn't be any more out of favour with the current Yankee leadership. If they tried, I mean, and that's an indictment on how stupid we can be at times as Australians, sadly.
Yeah. I think we forget. Okay, we might be this little country down in the Pacific, but we supply China with all of its iron ore, its gas, right? All these rare earth minerals that it uses to build its war machine, right? I don't think that China would come down here in a pink fit and invade the joint while we keep selling them minerals. The only reason that they would ever come to Australia is if we said we're going to stop selling your minerals, right? And they would be like, no, you're not.
Don't tell us what we're not buying off you.
We can tell you we're not buying them, but you can't tell us you're not selling them. That's not the way this relationship works,
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So,
without a doubt. We are a good little slave continent here to toss up the minerals for them. Keep harvesting.
Well, it's a reality, mate. Why do you invade countries? You invade them for minerals or for land. Well, most of our land is uninhabitable, right? You can't live on it, but you can mine it, and we are the best in the world at mining it. So why would you want to bring all these Chinese people over here to try and mine minerals that you're not going to be able to do effectively? We've worked out the fine art of doing it. We are professionals. Yep. We are great at it. And they use the minerals and then they sell us the stuff back, make money, and then buy our good real estate, right? Why the hell would they stuff that? That's the best relationship in the world.
Oh, look, they've got a very dominant relationship, and and we are subservient to them, whether we like it or not. And I don't see that changing, certainly in our lifetime. I don't think they're going to invade. I've said it before, I'll say it again too, mate. I think that one-child policy means that China's got about 10 years. If they're going to invade anywhere in a serious capacity, they're fighting males, of age, are sort of, they're going to be running out of steam in the next 10 years. That one-child policy obviously put them in a big hole. But they've got so many people, but they're all going to be pensioners soon or very close to. They're certainly not going to be
young, strong blokes out there picking fights. I know there are. We don't want to upset the ladies in the room. I'm sure plenty of women can fight just as well as men on the front lines in battlefields, no doubt. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But, fighting age males are a pretty serious and important capability for any country that's going to contemplate war. And I just don't think China's going to have that in 10 years.
I would argue that only in the sense that the days of frontline online fighting, I think, are behind us, right? I think that Ukraine has shown us the way, which is a $2,500 drone strapped with 500 grams of C4 explosives, right? Moving at 200 kilometers an hour. That's the future, right? And it takes out a $30 million tank. That's probably more. That's probably more so. They drive a truck along the road, and a shipping container opens up, and $500,000 worth of drones come out, and they destroy $4 billion worth of aircraft.
That was pretty wild, wasn't it? Like that was off tap.
I think that that's how the Turkish government. I remember seeing something on them where they have a drone swarm because they realise that we can't outsmart the Americans with their aircraft carriers, Americans or the Russians. How do we deal with one? Well, the best thing is, and they've got all these anti-aircraft guns, anti-submarine shit. Well, but if they have 10,000, 15,000 drones fly at the thing at once with explosives, that's how they do it. Right? They fly into the same spot at the water level, and it sinks the aircraft carrier. Yeah.
Yeah, right. No, I hadn't heard that one about the Turks there, but that doesn't surprise me either. Like they're pretty clever, and you can only do what you can do. Like as a country, Australia's got very limited military capabilities. I don't care what anyone says. Our diggers are amazing for sure, but our military capabilities are so limited, based not just on our geographical situation, but also the awkward spot we're in between the Yanks and the Chinese. We can't build up a massive army, like.
Yeah, but it's just
one
point in bankrupting the country. Like I understand, okay, we need to increase our military spending. That's fine. I agree with that because I don't think that our diggers should be kicking around sitting in the bush on milk crates, right? They should have great weapons. And our Australian soldiers were the first people that were dropped into, I think it was into Iraq to identify targets. And they were there for weeks before anyone even knew that they were there, right? So our soldiers are extremely skilled individuals, and it's because they get to train in such diverse terrain. They can be in the mountains, they can be in the desert, they can be in the sea. Right? Our country's got it all to train in. They can be in tropical North Queensland, be freezing down in bloody Tasmania. Right? They've got everything. We've got everything here. We've got a great fighting spirit. But the reality is we're not fighting in World War II anymore, right? That's not the type of... We're not fighting a trench war. We're not running across battlefields. Those days are gone. You're fighting with heat-seeking drones that travel 200 kilometers an hour that can find you hiding under a log, right? How do you fight in that sort of environment? We have not adapted, to that sort of warfare yet. And that's what's coming. Next generation sort of warfare. So even submarines, man, I highly doubt that these massive floating nuclear submarines under the sea, I believe that what you will end up with undersea drones that will find these submarines and they'll blow them to pieces. That's what I think will come. Because what's the cheapest way of getting rid of the thing? You can't build another nuclear sub. You just build something smaller that'll find it.
Loaded up with weaponry. I mean, look, mate, I think you're probably going to be right there, and it's almost terrifying to think that that's how it's going to be. I mean, I the whole Trump thing, blowing up the nuclear facilities, I dig that. I'm pretty anti-war, but I thought the way that was handled was, one, extremely impressive, just woke up one morning and, oh, yeah, by the way, I've just bombed the living fuck out of these nuclear sites. You know, like first it was, now, and I saw what was one of the green psychos was on the TV this morning waffling on about how, oh, he's unhinged. And I'm like, no, he's unpredictable. That's different to unhinged.
Yeah.
He knew exactly what he was doing. Came out and said, I'm going to give you pricks 2 weeks to wind this up, get it over and done with. 2 days later, he went fucking boom, boom, boom. Are you finished yet, kids?
Yeah.
That's not unhinged. That's unpredictable, and I think there's a lot of value in a leadership that can be unpredictable in that way.
Oh, listen, and everyone said, he's all bark, he's no bite. He's all bark, he's no bite. He never does anything. He always threatens. Well, I bet there's a few people now that are sitting back going, well, he just blew up Iran's nuclear facilities, right? Like, now, I am no fan of conflict whatsoever. But the reality is when you go to Israel, and if you've ever been and you go down to the Wailing Wall and you have a look across the square and you see the mosque on the Temple Mount, and on one side of the wall, tens of thousands of Muslims praying, and on the other side of the Jews, and the Jews are just biding their time to get back in there, to build their third Temple of Solomon, to have the Messiah come to take them to heaven, right? You realize this conflict is never going to end. And the radical 12th Imam side of things, on the Sheikh side, the Iranian side of things, is that they believe that they need to purify the world, and that purification is with the Jews' blood, right?
Yeah.
They need to wipe Israel off the map. That's their belief. They need to wipe them out, and they don't. And if they get a nuclear weapon, they will use it. That's my fear. I honestly, because you're not dealing with someone who's like a Russian that just wants to get rich, right? And he's oppressing his people like they did in the USSR. They were godless heathens in the USSR. They had no God. They got rid of the church. They didn't believe in Christ. These guys are religious fanatics. They are lunatics. They believe in death. They honor death.
They're going to blow up all these people, and when they're done, they get 72 virgins, and they honestly how wonderful I am. And they live every minute of it, and they teach their kids this shit. And that's the, I don't. I mean, look, let's be fair. Trump dropped a couple of bombs with the Afghani thing as well. If you recall back to his first presidency, he dropped a couple of bombs over there in Afghanistan, right around winding all that shit up. Like, he didn't throw a lot, and he seems to be committed to his, I'm not going to kill civilians, which I think is pretty good. I'm all for that.
That's right. He blew up a couple. I think he blew up an Iranian general, actually.
Yeah.
He did kill. He did take out. He did a few strategic strikes. He didn't do the Obama peace from 30,000 feet approach.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate a more targeted strike. There's nothing worse than seeing civilians killed by lunatic politicians. That's the saddest part of war, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that these rich and powerful maniacs effectively send their poor people off to die for whatever whim they're on any given day.
Yep. It's mate. It's old men talking and young men dying, right? And that's the reality of it. It's just, and it's sad, and it shouldn't happen. And often, if you were a Russian and I was an Australian and we come across each other in a bar, we'd be fine, right? But then when these two groups of politicians decide that we're enemies, then we're on a battlefield and we're trying to take each other eyes out with bayonets, right? It's not right, and I totally disagree with it. But I totally, after going around the world and seeing a lot of things around the world, the religious fanaticism is something that it really concerns me, because there's no other motivator that I've seen that's like it. There's nothing else that drives people more than.
Well, it's because there's no rationality behind it.
Yeah.
Like you're a pretty confident guy. I'm a pretty confident guy. If all of a sudden that confidence is channeled into I guess, for lack of a better term, an imaginary support person who's all invincible, all giving, all knowing, and at the end of you doing this as an already confident person's bidding, you're already confident, now you're extra confident because God's behind you. And God's telling you to do this shit, and at the end of it, you're getting all these virgins. You're going to be glorified. You're going to be amazing. It takes people who are relatively confident anyway, and it's going to turn them into fucking psychos. There's no alternative.
Yeah. And so I as much as I despise conflict and I don't want to. I hope I'm never in the position where I've actually got to make a decision to send someone, to fight. I never want to be in that position, because I believe if I wanted to send someone, then I believe that I should send myself first.
Yeah.
Right. And that you unless you're going to go to the front line yourself, or like, Zelensky.
Or you've already been. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you've already been and you're too old to go again. Right. So you understand what you are doing, what you are asking these people to do. Right. Then you should not do it. And so I'll never vote for or support a war unless the war's coming. Right. Unless you can't avoid it. Right. A war of defending your country is different, I believe, to attacking another one. Right. So.
Yeah, although sometimes I think we should invade New Zealand, and we need an extra territory. We'll take them.
Yeah, well, but see, I think that eventually, if Iran had got a nuclear weapon, I think it would have found. Eventually, it would have made its way into a Jewish city, and it would have been detonated. Probably would have been dropped or shot. It probably would have made its way over there in a truck or something, and just boom, that would have just been it, But the thing about these guys is they don't care if they win the war in 100 years, right? Because they believe that they're right. They believe that God's on their side, and they believe they'll outbreed the Jews, and they'll it's the caliphate. The caliphate's coming. They believe in all their heart that this is going to happen, and it is concerning. You see it taking over enclaves of Western civilization. There was a reason why they fought so hard to keep this ideology out, right? Why they stopped them at the gates of Constantinople down there in Turkey. Why they fought. There's a reason why the Vatican, right, has 100-foot high walls around it, right? It was to keep the Ottoman Empire out,
Yeah.
It's a hostile thing.
And currently we're shipping them in here 100 mile an hour, which, I know. Look, Pauline was very famous for being a racist bigot, 20, 30 years ago now, for basically stating we need to keep these people out and we're going to be overrun by foreigners and blah, 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 blah. And, look, she was probably colourful in the way she painted it, but she was 100% right.
Well, I mean, who would look now and go for a walk down the main street of Sydney, right? If you go down to central Sydney, down to George Street, say someone blindfolded you, took your blindfold off down in that street, you would not know what country that you're in by looking around at the residents of the country. Now, you could drop me in Hanoi, you could drop me in Thailand, you could drop me in Bangkok, you could drop me in China, right? And I know I've been to a lot of these cities. I've been to hundreds of cities overseas now. And generally you can tell where you are. Now, my city of my home country is not like that anymore. which I find odd. It is a peaceful city. Most of the people down there are peaceful. But I just find it odd that the Australian-born people have been pushed out of that city into the outer suburbs. I find it odd, you know?
It's definitely odd. And, look, it's my biggest concern is this refusal to assimilate. If and I've spent some time in France and places like that. They won't communicate with you if you're not even attempting to speak French, and I think they're right. If you're coming to Australia where English is the national language, I think it makes perfect sense for you to make the effort to become part of that society. Don't bring your bullshit. Come, work, contribute, and try to assimilate. I don't care which country you come from. It just makes sense to me that if you're coming, don't come here to. I lose my shit when I see these, protests for Iran and Gaza and shit. On Sydney Harbour Bridge. It's like, no. If you want to do that, you want to get into those fights with that mentality, fuck off back over there.
Yeah.
And
I can't disagree with that sentiment that you hold there, because I look and I think this is not. We didn't have these Middle Eastern conflicts and all this sort of crap. They were fringe groups, right? And Albo was in one of them, coincidentally. Right, Albo was one of these free Palestine people back in the day. He was one of the supporters of these groups. He was a left-wing lunatic when he was younger. Some would say that he still are. He's hidden his stripes very well. Yeah, and I'm glad that we don't have the violence that's over there, and I hope that it doesn't come over here. Because that religious violence towards the Jewish people, it's a curse on your society, right? And it starts and it doesn't stop that sort of that hatred of the Jewish people. And I hope I hope we don't see it here. The Jewish people are the biggest minority in the world, and I understand all the conspiracy theories around the Jew zone and all the banks and all this sort of crap, right? I don't buy into it too much. What I look at and go, these are the most persecuted human beings on earth. You have a death cult living next to them, right? That's got in its constitution is like, we need to kill these Jewish people. It's written. They've got it written down, and everyone's like, they'll be all right. I'm sure they'll be fine.
They'll be right. So like gays for Palestine. Like, you got to go, really?
Yeah.
Really? I don't think that shit's going to fly over there, guys. Be careful what you wish for,
mate. And this is the thing: is that these lefties, you talk to you listen to the imam that's over here. He's a Western bloke now, and he was radicalized in Egypt, and he was going to commit a suicide attack, and he didn't end up doing it, right? I can't remember his name now, but he said he would always vote left. He said the people on the right scared him. He said I was concerned to vote right because I didn't know what I was going to get. Was I going to get some right-wing dictator that was going to work me out, right? And then I'd end up in jail. He said, but I'd always vote for the left because they always felt sorry for me, And he said, and I couldn't give a shit about those people or what they thought about, because at the end of the day, I knew that we were going to cut all their heads off anyway, But he said, I knew that they would never do that. They would never do that to me. So I always voted for the left. And I thought, that's interesting, you've got this guy telling them, I used to vote for you. I didn't care about you because I was going to cut your head off. And they still, nothing clicks to go, maybe this guy's telling the truth.
Mate, they don't notice that until after their heads are rolling around on the ground and they go, shit, how did that happen? The same amount of brains is in there, I think, on a lot of them. Poor buggers. It's a pretty sad state of affairs.
Why are we all up against the wall, facing the wall, and there's a rifle in our back of our head?
Yeah. I'm waving your flag. I'm waving it. Look, I had your Palestinian flag or whatever around my Facebook profile.
And look, I
Offhand.
feel sorry for a lot of the people that are born into these cultures, because they're brainwashed since they were born. And you hear some of the people that are caught that were going to commit terrorist attacks, the Jews that caught them, put them in jail, put them through a rehabilitation program, and they were like, man, I thought you guys were going to torture us and eat us. We were taught that you were the most horrible, from birth they were taught this nonsense. And
not just from birth, but I mean for generations and generations and generations. Like, this isn't just one psycho who's kind of raising his kid like a psycho. This is an entire culture built around this hatred. My libertarian view generally, I'd currently go, let's stop all immigration for about 5 years, 3 to 5 years. Let's work out who's going to come over and kind of get involved and be useful. And then I'm all for merit-based immigration, not this bullshit. Pretend visas for I don't know, elbow voters.
Yeah,
and actual merit-based.
You're a student coming over to study some college that doesn't even exist, and then you end up working for cash, taking business loans, sending all the money home, and then bailing out of the country.
Yeah, it happens.
It does.
It happens. It happens all the time.
All the time, man. I forget the figure. I won't quote a figure because I can't remember exactly what it is. But it was in the tens of millions of dollars that were borrowed by Chinese students during COVID for these business loans that they gave out to get back going again. Created fake businesses, got these business loans, and then left.
Yep. Yeah. And you know what? If our government's that stupid, which you and I both know that effectively they are, they kind of deserve it. The sad part is it doesn't come out of the government's money. It comes out of yours and mine.
Yep. That's right. They turn around and go, we need to recoup this money, so we've got to up the amount of audits that we're doing on the people that are here, the citizens.
The people that are killing themselves to pay the bills. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's crazy, mate. It's crazy. Yeah. So, mate, look, I tell you what, I've got a couple of, look, we're not going to do this all night forever, but, mate, anybody who's watching, and we tend to sort of fluctuate with our viewership here, but we got some real good, consistent people. Where do you want them to follow your stuff at? And again, I know there's going to be some of them that are going to be very excited about the idea of One Nation branches popping up all around the state.
Right. So you can follow me, jump on my stuff at Stuart Bonds for Hunter. Just whack that in the search bar and it should come up. And if you have a look on there, I'll keep you updated about stuff that's happening with the One Nation Senator in New South Wales. I'll keep you updated. I'm fairly active on social media at the moment. My social media's had a fair kick-off during this election, and I intend to keep it rolling into the state election and into the next federal one, if so be it. So, yeah, and the branches, I would say over the next couple of months, they'll start to get rolled out. They will be slow at first. There will be a couple of areas, and then it will grow and grow and grow, right? And eventually it'll take hold. Because the trick to this is to not let it get out of control. We cannot let this. We'll have one opportunity to do this properly, and if we stuff it up, it'll just go into the dustbin of history. We can't stuff this up. It's got to be done properly. So we're determined to implement it in a way that it will not fall over, right? And it will not be infiltrated and factionalized and this and that and this and that, We're not going to have people that just get 8 new members together and start up a branch. That's not going to happen. There's got to be some history there. We've got to look at the people that want to run it, want to do it for the right reason, and then they'll be allowed to start branches. So when they happen, they'll be announced in your areas, and
And
join
look,
them.
you and I have discussed those sort of things before. From when I spent some time starting to build up Libertarian Party, well, the Liberal Democrat branches. I sort of had a lot to do with the early stages of that. There are a lot of pitfalls worth watching and monitoring, and being certainly plenty of grenades that can catch you in and around. It is important that you get it right, because I see One Nation as particularly with the Liberal Party being effective, as far as I'm concerned, dead in the water. One Nation is really uniquely positioned to potentially become that. I honestly think to become the party of opposition if it gets it right.
Yeah, I think, as you said before, like, Pauline's our draw card. She's always been the draw card. But the reality is Pauline probably has another term, maximum full term left in her after this one, right? Which gives her 9 years max.
Yeah.
Right? That's just the reality of it. I think she's 70 or 71. That puts her at 80 if she wants to run that far.
Yeah.
She's still in good spirits. She's still in good stead. You sit and have a conversation with her, and she ain't no Joe Biden. Like, she's kicked around down here with the Hunter with me, and had a couple of vodkas and a couple of wines, and had a chat, kicked around at the pub with everyone. And, she is not the 71-year-old lady that you and I think a 71-year-old lady is, not at all. So,
yeah,
heaven help her, she'll keep going. But this is the way forward when she leaves, right? Is to have this solid company-like structure in place so that when she decides to step out, this thing can take over and it will run itself. It doesn't need guidance so much.
Well, it really has to. It really has to. That's the only way of the future for the party. Without Pauline at the helm, mate, and she's an absolute warrior. I've got all the respect in the world for her. Even on the policies we disagree on, that, so I still think she's an absolute, been an Australian champion for years and years. So I have a ton of respect for her in that capacity. But
I don't
if
think
she gets
I
this,
think I would be right in saying that she would be at least in the top 5 of the most influential people in politics that's ever been in our politics in the history of the country, right? You've got your Gough Whitlam and your Hawke and whatever, right? She would be up there. Her longevity, how long she stayed in there, the impact that she's made. Like, she's probably one of the most famous people in the country, and now's the time
without a doubt,
to leave her, to give her a legacy, that something to leave behind.
Well, arguably, if she gets this right, she becomes the Menzies of the future. Really, the next wave, she becomes the Menzies of. So to get it right, I see it as pretty important. I honestly believe the Liberal Party is dead. I do not think there is any future for the Liberal Party going forward. They proved that this week with the pseudo dooming thing. They've proven it with the Susan Ley gibbering fucking nonsense today and yesterday, whenever it was, just waffling on with crap. The Liberal Party's dead. Anybody who's still breathing faith into that, who leans conservative, and I'm more libertarian than conservative, but I'm certainly a right-leaning libertarian. I think One Nation, if Pauline gets this right, she becomes the Menzies of, the next 40 years kind of deal, and One Nation replaces the Liberal Party as the opposition. Now, I could be wrong, but I doubt it.
Well, the Liberal Party will always exist in some facet. The thing is, it's my belief, and I've always thought this, is that we are never going to appeal to 51% of the voters, right? It's just the nature of the party. It's the way that we are. It's the policies that we put forward, right? And the way that we fight for is we fight for the worker. We fight for the person that's downtrodden, that is not being represented in Parliament, right? And those people are the minority, and they are carrying the majority. And we stick up for those people. Our views are not the popular views. We want the views that work. The coal-fired power stations. That's not the popular view at the moment, right? Now, but what we can do is get a solid 20%. And 20% of the vote, right? 20% nationwide is 14 senators in Parliament, right?
Just remember though, mate, Albo got in at about 34%. You don't need 51 anymore. That's dead in the water.
No, you don't need that. But the Greens have Labor by the balls with 12%, right?
Yeah.
Now, we don't need to aim to please everyone. The Greens certainly don't aim to please everybody, do they? Like, you have a look at them and you think they're a bunch of fringe lunatics. We don't have to deal with them. They lost every seat. Ha, ha, ha. Reality is Labor can't pass a single piece of legislation without the help of the Greens, right? And so we need to be the sane part of that the Liberal Party have lost, that conservative sane part. We need to pick up those voters, you know? We need those people.
Mate, I agree with you completely.
Yeah. And so, but
I think out of all the minor right parties, the One Nation is in the best position, pending how they get this branch rollout done. They're in the best position to. I don't think the Libertarians the Libertarians will be the party of my heart forever. You know, as you know, I had a big role in building them for quite a few years to a certain stage, but I don't know that they're ever going to get themselves beyond that 2, maybe 5% mark, certainly in my lifetime, which pains me. It breaks my heart a little bit. I can actually see One Nation potentially getting that 20 to 30% and absolutely being a contender. Perhaps they become the coalition partner with Nationals down the track, maybe. I have far more faith in a combination like that than I do the Liberal Party at the moment. I think the Liberal Party's just dead in the water. I see no future for them whatsoever, other than flying a little blue flag with a rainbow heart in the middle of it or whatever it is, and some other really, really confused. They're just so confused, mate. They haven't got an identity. They're just dead.
Well, I believe that this state election will be stronger state election for One Nation than it was with Mark Latham when Latham won.
Yeah,
they got Mark and Rod in, and I believe there's a chance that we could get 3 in here because of how poorly the Liberal Party did. You know, Liberal Party, you got to remember when Mark and Rod got in, the Liberals got in, they got a strong vote. Well, there's a lot of people that aren't going to vote for the Liberals this time around. Right? And they don't want to vote Labor. So where's that vote going to go? So I think your Liberal Democrats might pick up a couple, but I think a lot of them will go to One Nation. If we get this branch thing right, which we will,
and if you've got solid candidates and you're running campaigns, again, a bit like yourself, running them from now. I've said it for years, and again, that's where I think the Libertarians regularly struggle is the candidates need to be building themselves up for years, not showing up for a 5-week election and going, oh, I'm the candidate for wherever.
Yeah.
You know, you should have been the candidate for wherever 5 years before the election.
Yeah, you can only do that if you're flying the Labor or the Liberal Party banner because they've got a known brand, you know. Maybe one day we might be able to do that with the One Nation brand, right? You know, it might be a bit bigger, but look, I
think the One Nation brand's usually good for 4 to 6, 4 to 10.
Yep. In some areas outside the city, up to 10%, I believe, is probably it's good what your brand's good for there, which is a good vote, right? That's a solid vote, but you've got to work to advance it. You know, it's not as you know, mate, it's one of the hardest jobs that you can do being a candidate. It's thankless. It costs you money. and you just got to hide, and everywhere you go, and you don't get a fair shot from the media. So it's nothing to line up for, you know. Like if you're up there for a good time, you want to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, you got to be pretty committed. It's a soul destroying exercise, that's for sure. Particularly when you know that the likelihood of getting elected is 2/10 of bugger all.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you tip the Libertarians' chances of getting John Ruddick running buddy in are?
Mate, look, based on how they're performing, which I think they're doing a lot of really good things at the moment, the right candidate with a solid campaign, and again, they should almost be campaigning now. If they take the foot off the gas from the federal election, they'll struggle. Statistically, they're usually pretty solid in the space, particularly with the Libs being as incompetent as they are at the moment. I think if they've got a good candidate with a bit of a profile who is working from now, they should be able to get a second person into New South Wales Parliament. And you know, obviously, I'm at the where I look at it and I go, if Stuart Bonds is running, I'll hand out flyers for Stuart Bonds. If the Libertarians have a candidate that I deem, and again, it's not just about me, but it's about whether or not I'm willing to put any time, effort, and energy into somebody's campaign. For whatever that may or may not be worth. You know, I've seen some One Nation candidates that over the years that I'd absolutely go and hand out for. Emma Eros, you know, love Emma. I would have handed out for her tomorrow. Yourself, you know, I do get along quite well with Latham. You know, no problem there. The Libertarians, same sort of thing. When they produce really good candidates, I like. I'll absolutely do whatever I can to help them, you know, develop and get across the line in whatever capacity. I'd love to see the Libertarians get 2 in. I'd love to see One Nation get a few in, certainly in New South Wales. And I'd love to see, you know, the lefties, including the Liberal Party, Lib, Labor and Greens, just get black eyes everywhere.
How do you rate John Ruddick's performance? I remember you and I having a conversation before the election. You said this is going to go one or two ways. John's actually going to be awesome and be the bloke that I know he can be, or he's going to be big, fat, lazy and do nothing and end up disappointing everyone. And I think it's probably the former, right? I think he's been great.
Absolutely. It's the former. Every now and then when I see him come out with something, I'll flick him a text and I'll go, that was fucking great, John. Good stuff. You know, I'm not actively involved in the party directly anymore. I was, and I guess it's a quirky story maybe, I was the endorsed federal candidate around COVID time for the New South Wales upper house ticket. That was kind of where it was at, mainly because we didn't have anybody else. This Ruddick bloke showed up from the Liberal Party, which automatically made me sceptical because is he a plant? Is he something? You know what I mean? And he showed up, and I spent some time with him, and I turned around, I said to everyone, I said, no, this is the guy, let's run him. He's electable. I'm not. You know, he is absolutely electable. And I spent that bit of time with him, and we had beers, and we chewed the fat. And, mate, I used to interrogate people pretty hard if they wanted to be a candidate, you know, like if I didn't already know him, I was pretty defensive of the party's you know, the integrity of the party. So I drilled him, mate, on topics and just drill him. And then we'd have beers and I'd drill him even harder. And what do you think about this? Just to see if any commie shit had come out of him. And, you know, when I stepped away from the party, it wasn't John that concerned me. It was certainly potential other people around him, maybe. I think he's been fucking dynamite because he was never going to get a bill passed while he's in there. He's got no allies in there. So he's in there and he's throwing fucking perfect grenades.
He's just,
you know, and I've got all the time in the world for him.
He's just throwing haymakers. He's like he's in one of those mosh pits where they just punch everyone around them. And he's just like punching everyone next to him, behind him. Which is what you need to do. What you need to do. Call them out.
Well, his options were to go in there and go, I'm not going to be able to pass one bit of legislation because everybody both sides of the aisle hate me to a degree. Which that could well have been the attitude to take, because he's got very few friends in there. I think Latham and him might work on a few things, a few of those guys, but effectively he's in there pretty well flying solo. So you can go in there and go, well, I got my 300 grand a year. I'm going to sit on my ass, get fat, drink beer, and eat lobster all day, and go, well, I can't achieve anything in here, or I can take the fight to these bastards, knowing that there's not a thing they can do to me, and that's what he's done. So I'm really, really impressed with everything he's done so far. You know, like, I like the guy. I don't know if he's still trying to marry his daughters off to my son. I know that was on the table for a little while for him. But yeah, mate. Look, I think Ruddock's been, you know, top notch, and I hope he can stay there. I hope he can get somebody else really top notch, just as principled in there, who goes, okay, well, maybe there's two of us now throwing grenades. Maybe we can start to build a bit of a block of half sensible people in there to you know, potentially change some topics. But at the moment, he's going to get that coverage. He's going to upset them. He's going to call for firearms to be, you know, an Australian right. Things like that will get you that airtime, and it's a bit like the Greens when they do outlandish shit, but it gets them a heap of attention. It gets them fringe voters. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, and look, when he went out the front of Parliament House and got on the stand in front of all the, you know, the activists who were out there support, like, fighting against that abortion bill that came out, that was a terrible, terrible bill, and John sort of become a spokesperson for that, and I thought that was a good opportunity, and it was a good thing for him to do, because as he said, I'm here to fight for the vulnerable, and what's more vulnerable than a baby in the womb, you know? And that was one of the great lines that I've ever heard him say. And I thought, that's exactly right, you know? And then these scumbags in here are trying to remove doctors' rights, their religious rights, away from them, from being able to, wanting to say, no,
don't
want to perform an abortion. Do you mind going to another doctor? Right? Like, what kind of sick psychopath forces someone, and those doctors would perform it if it was life or death, but they just didn't want to have a perform.
You don't want to be, you don't want a gun to your head saying you must kill this baby because somebody thinks it's a good idea.
Because it's the wrong gender, you know?
Yeah.
No way.
Mate, John has been fearless since he got in there. You know, he was fearless through COVID. Obviously, during that period of time, I got to know him pretty well. I haven't got a bad word to say about him, really. Like, I mean, you know, I think there was a little bit of, like, factionally Liberal Party shit that he kind of came in with, but I think that was more just he'd been in the Liberal Party for 30 years, and that was kind of what you had to deal with, and that was how the game was played.
Yeah.
You know, which I know I found that really frustrating because I'd spent fucking a long time trying to keep all that shit out of the building. But mate, he's got in there, and he's absolutely. I'm glad I made the choice at the time to step aside and go, mate, this is the candidate we need to be getting behind. Obviously, he didn't get in that federal election, but then at the next state election, he romped it home. You know, and there was a lot of drama and bullshit as happens in political parties, as you know.
It always. Yeah, it's all.
I had him pegged to be I had him pegged then as the right candidate. I thought there was a couple of other candidates that would make excellent candidates down the line. I still think they would make excellent candidates down the line. I don't think they're necessarily involved anymore, but they probably should be to some degree. And I just look at John, and I look, had he gone in there and taken the let's get fat and eat lobster option, I'd be sending him text messages, but they wouldn't be, mate, I thought that was a really good speech, or mate, that was spot on. They'd be, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah,
you know.
Mate, I thought I've known John for a little while now too, and you know, met him a bit more during COVID, and he'd come up here to a march up here in Singleton, and him and Crib, you know, Robbie.
Yeah.
You know, and I've got on really well with those guys, and I always thought Henny's the right person to get in there because he's quite sharp, he's very intelligent, and he's quite funny too. So I thought, a bit of humour when you get up and speak, it always adds that different element to it when they're speaking in Parliament.
And the other thing I've noticed with him as well, and it could have been, there's probably a couple of things with it, and it was just my perspective at the time. When he first got to the Libertarians and we kind of started pushing him towards that lead candidacy, he was a really awkward guy. Well, he's still a bit awkward, but, most Libertarians are a bit awkward, but he was awkward in a way that I was sort of, a lot of people were going, oh, fuck, really? He's come into his own as well, which it's hard to say about a bloke who's in his 30s or 40s that he's sort of, in a way, grown up. But politically in that space, he's just grown so much more confident with I'm going to fucking throw grenades and I'm going to throw haymakers. And if they throw, what are they going to do to me? There's nothing. And it's like he's worked that out.
Yeah,
and you can see it in his speeches.
He's really shaken off that Liberal Party background
that
he had. That's gone now. You don't have to deal with those people. He's his own boss. He's really grown into it.
Yeah.
I follow his stuff. I quite like it. And but
if you were to backtrack to some of his early speeches for the Libertarian parties at various events, his confidence level's nothing like it is now. He's really sort of mastered the Libertarian space. And the Libertarian space is an awkward one, but it's where you can sort of, if you're authentic, God, it shows, and it's showing that he's a genuine Libertarian in my eyes. He's done everything proper. It's a bit like David Leyonhjelm, same sort of bolt. They're just genuine Libertarians. And then on the other side, we have seen a few imposters come through, and you go, "You're not a fucking Libertarian. You're a conservative, mate." And there's a big difference between a hard, and there is a difference. You can be a bit conservative and Libertarian, but if you're an out and out conservative, you're not a Libertarian.
Yeah, that's right.
You can be a conservative with some Libertarian views, sure, and you can be a Libertarian with a few conservative leanings. But you can't be an outright conservative and be representing Libertarian values. And that's where you see the difference in the US of Trump's a conservative, he's not a Libertarian.
Yeah, that's right.
He's got a few Libertarian.
Yeah.
But you look at Thomas Massey.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Massey's a Libertarian who happens to be in the Republican Party. You can just see it.
Yeah, Ron Paul's a Libertarian, right?
Absolutely.
They're probably only conservative around the topic of drugs. Everything else, they're Libertarians. Whereas
absolutely, that's right.
You get all these other guys and I agree with free speech to a point. You're like, no, there's no point. No.
Yep. Fuck your point. Fuck off with your point. Where did you get a point from?
Yeah, that's right.
It is funny, mate. But I think John's been a legend. I do have high hopes of them getting somebody else in. I have high hopes of getting you into Parliament, mate. And look, I'm happy enough to sort of help out where I can with a little bit of whatever I've got, and I was glad a couple of my mates managed to go up and give you a hand during the federal election. Chris was saying he was, he's been on a couple of great guys, and that's the thing with a lot of these things. You got to help each other out a bit, and whatever it takes to get some sensible, good people into Parliament.
Mate, we've got to fight the good fight, and Warwick Stacey won his seat. He got he won his seat by I think 16,000 votes, 17,000 votes or something, and that was around about what we got for the Senate vote here in the Hunter. So I think to myself, I was really glad that I run again, because that gave him that extra little bit of a boost that he sort of needed to push him over the line.
Yeah.
I mean, he also got 400 and something thousand other first preference votes either. I'm by no means taking credit for getting him there. All I'm saying is that there was just that little bit of an extra punch. we were
Those
able to.
those of us who understand how it works, yeah, I mean that is how it works. That's why a lot of these smaller parties run lower house candidates as a rule, is because if you can
Yeah.
get a lower house candidate that will get that little bit of bit of voting value, bit of profile, bit of whatever, running for a One Nation.
Yeah.
Oh well, if Stuart's running for One Nation, well, I'll give him the top vote as well. A lot of voters don't identify the difference really.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of most minor party strategies, is to run lower house candidates to try and boost up that profile for the upper house candidate. So
Yeah.
there's great strategy there, mate. And I thought your result in the 100, I was disappointed, but I was disappointed for, I guess, I wasn't disappointed in anything you did or anything like that. I was more shocked that, with such a spineless campaign out of pretty much everybody else in your electorate, the refusal to debate you, the fact that they're voting to shut down coal if they vote for anybody other than you in a coal mining fucking electorate. I'm just sometimes people's stupidity just baffles me, mate. I just fuck. And then I sit there and go, why do I bother? Do I want to save these people? Do we really need to? Maybe we should just let it go. Like.
Listen, mate, what I see is if they don't have any pushback, right? If they don't have any pushback at all, then they can go full nuts, right? Because there is no alternative. But if you just keep niggling there, and I know we're on the right side, and how I know is it's called the free market, and the free market is screaming at them, do not do this, because the price of electricity is going up, and that price is an indicator that there's problems, right? And so we're on the right side. We're saying, hey, there's a problem here, and they're going, no. The problem's the old power stations. You're like, not really, because why was the electricity price heaps lower using the same power stations, and now it's heaps higher? Now you're not using them anymore. Like, eventually they'll get called out, right? They'll get called out, and people are going to be furious. So you just got to be there, man.
Yeah. Hopefully it happens sooner rather than later, my brother. Sooner rather than later.
I agree, and I'm gonna have to get out of here, brother, because I've got to get up at 3:30,
yes.
which is 6 and a bit hours away from here. So,
mate, other than the internet fucking around and giving us a hard time, it's always a pleasure catching up with you. And I guess part of it for me is always, if I can share, your work with other good people. I'm always a bit of, obviously I share your posts and stuff like that. I do want to see Stuart Bonds in Parliament.
Look, and I try and do a little bit out and around. Like I was just speaking at one of the independent planning commissions thing that was down there in Hay, right? For this thing that was down in the Riverina, where they're trying to put this massive wind turbine project up with all the interconnectors that all go through all the area down around the Riverina. So I am trying to get involved in some stuff around the state, which I will continue to do. So if you have any dramas, you have any stuff going on or whatever, like get in touch with Dean, who'll get in touch with me, or get in touch with me directly and try and see what I can do. And let's just fight the good fight. So thanks for having me on, mate, and it's good to catch up.
Always a pleasure, and we're due to have a beer at some stage in the near future. But mate, you take care. Keep up the warrior-like lifestyle. You're an absolute champion. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for tuning in to Dean and Irv Spin Doctors without Irv for the evening, and apparently with very limited internet access for some unusual reason.
Thanks, Malcolm Turnbull. Legend.
Malcolm Turnbull, you spastic.
You spineless Howard.
Amen, brother. And on that note, have a great night. Thank you.
Bye.